I'm Chris Wallace. Today, Benghazi under the microscope.
When you said what you said, did you know that this had gone through 12 versions?
Why not offer that information at the start?
The phrase is, let's not put this out because we don't want to be criticized.
This is an effort to accuse the administration of hiding something that we did not hide.
Amid renewed charges of a cover-up, calls for a special inquiry.
We should have a joint committee of the appropriate committees asking what really happened in Benghazi.
We'll talk with two congressmen at the center of the storm. The chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, and the top Democrat on House Armed Services, Adam Smith. Then, political redemption in South Carolina.
Some guy came up to me the other day. He said, "You look a lot like Lazarus."
Politically dead after a sex scandal, now elected to Congress. We'll sit down with Mark Sanford. It's a Fox News Sunday exclusive. And our Power Player of the Week, a story of making billions and giving much of it away. All right now on Fox News Sunday. Hello again and happy Mother's Day from Fox News in Washington. The controversy over the Benghazi talking points, how the Obama administration explained the attack to the American people, blew up again this week with new revelations about how those points were written. It turns out the original drafts talked about extremists with links to al-Qaeda and noted the CIA had warned for months about threats in Benghazi. But all that was taken out before Susan Rice went on the Sunday talk shows. We've invited congressmen from two key House panels. Mike Rogers, the Republican chair of the Intelligence Committee, and from Seattle, Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman Rogers, you were on Fox News Sunday, September 16th, right after Susan Rice came on the show, and she said it was a spontaneous reaction to a video that had been hijacked by extremists. From the very beginning, you doubted her account. Let's watch.
I have serious questions. It seemed to be a military style, coordinated. I'm just suspect that they could come to that conclusion so assuredly that it was a spontaneous effort given the coordination of it.
Congressman, after what you learned this week, the fact of what State Department officials were saying during the attack, how often and dramatically the talking points were changed, did the Obama administration mislead or even lie to the American people?
Well, here's what we know. We know that the intelligence was accurate leading up to the event, and very shortly thereafter, within 24 hours, the committee was notified that, in fact, that it was a terrorist attack, and that's what led me to my statements on that following Sunday. And we know that there was at least the general consensus at the time going into the 16th was, yes, it was a terrorist attack, but they changed the narrative. And I think that's what the investigation needs to focus on. Why did they change the narrative? Did it have a consequence? And I think those are really important questions to get asked.
And what's your answer to both of those?
Well, obviously,
why did they change the narrative?
Well, clearly some of the early indication is that they didn't want the narrative that it was a terrorist attack on their watch. Clearly that's what it appears to be. But again, that's what a thorough investigation should determine. And did that culture of that not wanting to be what it was actually contribute to the lowering of the security standards and other things? That is a very important question that the investigations of all the committees need to find the answer to.
Congressman Smith, you contradicted the administration's talking points even before Susan Rice went out on September 16th. In fact, on September 14th, here's what you said: mobs don't come in and attack guns blazing. I think that there is a growing consensus it was pre-planned. So let me ask you the same question. After this week's revelations, did the Obama administration mislead the American people?
I really don't think so, and I think when you look at what was said in totality in that week, they didn't reach conclusions. The way you just presented that was that by the Sunday afterwards that the administration said, here's what happened, here's our conclusion. I mean, look, the day after the attack, the president called it a terrorist attack. Susan Rice, in those interviews on Sunday, described violent extremist elements who took over the attack. So I really think that this has just become a very, very partisan-focused, scandal-focused attack by the Republicans investigating this instead of trying to figure out exactly what happened. The most interesting question to me is, who are these violent extremist elements? And I know Mike's done a ton of work on this in the Intel Committee. As al-Qaeda has metastasized beyond just what was in Pakistan and Yemen, there's a whole bunch of groups out there. We don't have as much information as we need to about which ones threaten us. I think that led to Benghazi as much as anything. But the president never said, no terrorism, no al-Qaeda. There was a dispute about how soon to leap to specific conclusions that now is being made into Watergate, into Iran-Contra. I think the desire of the Republicans to create a scandal here has really undermined any ability to have a credible look at what actually happened.
Well, Congressman Smith, let me push back on you on several of those points. We now know...
I'm not surprised, but go ahead.
Well, that is what I'm here for, sir. I'm not a potted plant. I'm here to ask some questions. We now know that there were 11 different versions of the talking points. 11 different versions.
12.
May I just please go ahead? In the 24 hours before Ambassador Rice went on the Sunday talk shows, a dozen versions in all. We now know that Victoria Nuland, the spokesperson for the State Department, demanded all references to al-Qaeda links and all references to earlier warnings for months from the CIA be deleted. Here's what the White House spokesman, Jay Carney, told the media, told the country last November.
The White House and the State Department have made clear that the single adjustment that was made to those talking points by either of these two institutions were changing the word consulate to diplomatic facility because consulate was inaccurate.
Congressman, that's not the truth. That wasn't the only change that the White House and State Department made.
Well, look, I mean, there was unquestionably a dispute, as you said in the opening, between the CIA and the State Department on exactly what to put into this statement. Now, who changed what when? The dispute is clear. The dispute was how soon to leap to the conclusion about specific groups being involved in this.
Simple question, if I may, sir.
Yes,
simple question.
please.
Was Jay Carney telling the truth on November when he said the State Department and the White House made one stylistic change? Was that the truth or not?
I don't know specifically who Jay Carney was referring to.
He said the White House and State Department. It seems pretty self-evident.
Well, yeah, but I don't know specifically which person he was talking to. Look, clearly there were more changes made than his statement made. What Jay Carney knew about who made those at that particular moment. But again, we're talking about talking points. There was no question this was a terrorist attack. They didn't deny it. I would much rather get into an investigation of the groups that threaten the U.S., how we can figure out who they are, and how we can stop them, instead of debating how one memo was put together in the immediate days after the attack.
Well, let's pick up on that. Congressman Rogers, the fact is, here we are 8+ months later, not a single person has been brought to justice. Not a single person has been brought to justice for the Benghazi attack. Has the administration done everything it could? And does the fact that these people have gone free play a role in the fact that we're now seeing militias running wild and U.S. personnel being pulled out of Libya?
I mean, the short answer is I, as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I'm not happy with the progress of the investigation. We have a serious problem. The more time that grew between the actual event and bringing those who were responsible to justice causes us national security troubles overseas. One of the 9/11 Commission findings was that, in fact, because we did not react to the USS Cole bombing, that emboldened al-Qaeda, which they believe was a contributing factor leading to the 9/11 event. They believed that they had cover to do what they needed to do. And when you look at the trouble in al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, all across northern Africa, including Libya, the trouble is growing. It's not getting smaller. And we're seeing a more regional effort for these folks to move around. The fact that we haven't taken that step, I think, is critically important. And it's a problem, a critically important problem that we need to solve.
I want to get to this point, though, that Congressman Smith brings up, which is the idea this is all politics. We learned this week that former Vice President Cheney visited with House Republicans and recommended that Hillary Clinton be subpoenaed to testify again. And two conservative groups went up with attack ads linking Clinton to Benghazi. Let's look.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is briefed at 2 a.m. by the ambassador's deputy that it was, in fact, terrorism.
I briefed her on developments.
Yet 2 days later, Secretary Clinton and others blamed protesters and
An awful,
internet video that we had nothing to do with.
Congressman Rogers, that sure makes it look political.
Well, certainly I think people are going to take advantage of every situation and make it political. I don't think you can say about the committee's investigation. I clearly have been a part of this investigation since the beginning. I doubt anyone can say we've been partisan or political in this. I do believe you have to have a fact-based investigation, and I think that's what we're doing. Matter of fact, the people who testified, these are serious 20-year veterans, at least in one case, of the State Department who felt so strongly they wanted to come out and testify. And I will tell you, we have had people come forward because of the testimony and say, we would also like to talk. We feel a little bit intimidated by this, but we have information we think is valuable as well.
So new whistleblowers.
I do think we're going to see more whistleblowers. I know certainly my committee has been contacted. I think others' committees has as well.